Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you an image processing workflow in Lightroom. It's a workflow that has a look at what the image is showing us and adapts to the image to bring out the best in it. This is the processing that we're looking to achieve in this video. This is the original image here. Just going to wind it back. It was shot in some inclement weather in Singapore, and the image itself has got some really nice attributes to it, but right now we're just not seeing them. This is the image as we're going to process it. We're playing down the colored bins over here. We're really bringing up the sky to see these beautiful clouds and having a look at what is available here in the foreground of interest. So this is what we're going to do in the video tutorial. We're going to have a look at taking the image from this to this in Lightroom. I'm going to start by winding this image all the way back to the beginning, and let's see how we would process it. The first thing I'm going to do is do some global adjustments to the image. So I want to have a look here at the histogram, and you can see that we've got some blown out highlights here. Now this is a JPEG image, so we won't have a lot of flexibility, but we can drop the exposure down a little bit. I'll also want to drop highlights and whites down to get them clear of the end of the histogram here, and in actual fact probably bring the exposure back up a little bit. I'm going to tweak the shadows maybe to get a bit of detail out here, and I'll just work and see what the blacks are going to give us. I'll increase the clarity because I want to get a little bit of extra detail in the mid-tones of the image, and perhaps a little bit of vibrance, not a lot, because we have to kill these containers very shortly. And I'll also go to the tone curve and see if either of these medium or strong contrast curves are going to help me. Well, they're not actually. I think medium if anything, but that's pretty much all I need to do at this point. The rest of the processing is going to be done at this stage using graduated filter. So I'm going to click here to get the graduated filter. And now I'm going to drag over the image to highlight the area that I want to apply the filter to. Now I want a fairly shallow transition, so I don't want this to be very steep, so I want quite a bit of distance between these bars. So the transition from the effect that I'm applying through to the effect just sort of petering out is really quite slow. Now I've got some pink color here, this sort of salmon pink. That's why we're getting a color in the image. If I just double click the word color, that zeroes it out. You can see that right now all the other sliders are zero. So we're affecting this part of the image. I just want to show you this part of the image is what we're affecting with this particular graduated filter. Now I want to bring some interest back into the sky, so I do want to drop down the exposure a little bit. I might want to bring up some highlights so that we get a little bit of interest here, and really what I'm doing is fishing around these sliders to see just what I can get here in the sky, and I may want a bit of contrast as well. Now I know that this is a JPEG image, and so it's going to suffer from noise, so I want to smooth out some of the noise. So I'm actually going to increase the noise adjustment at this point because I know I'm going to get the noise in the image. If you're not sure, you can zoom into the image and have a look and see. In fact, let's just go in here. Now you can see that's fairly smooth here, but if I bring this noise down, you can start seeing that noise is appearing in the image, and I just don't want that. So I'm going to apply really quite a steep noise reduction to this graduated filter. Let's just zoom back out and let's click done to say, okay, we're done with this right now. Now what you might say is that this edge of the roof is getting dark because of that filter we just applied. We can negate that. We can, if we're concerned about that, click on the adjustment brush. Make sure here that I have auto mask selected because I want to get into this little area here. I don't want color, so I'm just going to get rid of the color there. I'm going to click to set a edit pin for this and then just paint over this area. I'm going to show the selected mask overlay so that we can make sure that we're only painting in the area that we're concerned about. I can erase around here if I want to. and let's turn off the mask overlay, and let's just increase the exposure a little bit in here to compensate for what it is that we brought in with the graduated filter. Now you can do that anytime you want to with the adjustment brushes. Actually just pick up some of the detail that you've lost by using a graduated filter to, for example, bring down the sky. You'll probably need to do that whenever the sky is not a line across the horizon, so be prepared to be able to do that. Let's add another graduated filter. This one I'm going to bring in here on the water area. So I'm just going to drag this in, maybe position it a little bit here. I may want to reduce the sharpness here, so I could bring the clarity down, and that will make this a little bit fuzzier. For example, I could add a little bit of yellow into the sand if I want to see that by just adding a slight amount of yellow color. And I can do other things in here. I might increase the highlights, make it a little bit lighter, whatever I want to do, I can do with that adjustment there. Let's have a look at these bins here. This is of concern because that's bright yellow and red, and our eyes are really going towards that. I'm going to kill that color with the adjustment brush. I'm again going to target the adjustment brush, click here for a pin. I'm going to turn on auto mask because the edges of these bins are really obvious, and then I'm just going to paint around that. Let's show the selected mask overlay, and you can see that the paint job is pretty good there. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this other red bin, which is not really quite as colorful as the others are, but it is a red bin. Again, going back to brush A, just make sure that I've got all this area in here selected. Eraser if I need to erase any of that area. Let's deselect the show selected mask overlay, so now we can't see the mask overlay. And to get rid of the color, I'm just going to decrease the saturation because that turns it to more grayscale. I might actually work on the highlights. I could actually make them even a little bit darker if I wanted to, reduce some of the contrast, whatever it needs to kill the color here and make sure that they're less of what your eye goes and looks at. So click done there. Now there's a dog in here that if I had time and the desire, I might go in and actually work on the dog. I'm going to just zoom in here and use the space bar to drag upwards and just position the dog so that I can see him. Now I'm just going to check and see how I'm going with painting him. I will probably want to come in later and just fine tune this adjustment, but I'm switching between the brush and the eraser by just holding the Alt or Option key to use that as an eraser. So now I've got the dog selected. Let's see what we can do to perhaps bring a little bit more attention to the dog here, because it is a kind of cute little thing in this image. So again, I would spend a little bit of time getting a little bit closer into the edge of the dog. Just make sure that I have the dog properly selected and nothing selected that I don't want to have selected. And now that I'm done, I'll just click the done button. Let's zoom back out using the Z key. You can see that we actually have a little bit more detail in the dog there. Having done this, I might go back to my basic panel and just tweak the underlying image. So I might be having a look at this point and saying, well, what do I really want to do with this image? Can I get a little bit more detail here? Do I want to perhaps not take the highlights down quite so much, perhaps pump up the whites a little bit more? And if I want to, it's also possible for me to add a second graduated filter. So let's go and get the graduated filter again, and let's bring a second one of these in, because it's perfectly acceptable to add extra detail in areas where you want to see that extra detail by using two graduated filters on top of each other. So it may drop the, well, no, I think contrast is actually going to help me here quite a bit. And that this time with these adjustments, we can't really be looking at the histogram because we really want to be looking at the image itself, because the adjustments that we're applying are localized in that they're just for this graduated filter and they're not having an effect on the rest of the image. I'm just going to bring the graduated filter down here a little bit further, and when I'm done I'll just click done. And I may want to go back in with the adjustment brush and add a second adjustment in here just to get rid of the effect of what I've done with the adjustment on the sky. Just bring a little bit more detail back in here to counteract what happened when I applied that sky filter. And here I can adjust the flow if I want to. I can erase it if I've got it too much. I can smooth the edges. Perhaps a really nice feather here might help me to get this. I'm going to paint it on a little bit heavily and then perhaps erase it back with a high feather and a low flow. And see that I can start erasing it back just a little bit. Let's increase the flow on the eraser a little bit so that we're getting a sort of softer edge result. So we're not getting quite that intensity that says that we've got an adjustment in place there. Now, having achieved all this, probably the last thing that I'll do is warm this image up a little bit. So I'm going to the temperature slider and I'm just going to increase it a little bit. The reason why we're getting numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. and not Kelvin degrees here is, of course, we're working with a JPEG image. So I've just added a little bit of warmth to the image to give it that appearance. So let's see how far it is that we've come. I'm going to press the / key. This is the original image and here is the edited image. There's still other things that I might want to do with the image. I might want to kill this lightness in here, which again I can do with a simple graduated filter. Just grab the graduated filter, drag in here, and just reduce the exposure on that to try and darken that corner a little bit so our eye is not taken immediately to that corner lighting. But you can see that it's very easy to process images in a really interesting way in Lightroom. We're using basic fixes, so we've used the basic panel first of all, and then we've added graduated filter to allow us to edit the sky and some of this foreground, the adjustment brush to adjust small areas such as killing the color in these bins here, and also negating some of the effect that this straight edge of the graduated filter has caused over the roof of this building. We're able to bring back a little bit of the detail using the adjustment brush. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more of my video tutorials here on my YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications including Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator and a whole lot more.